Detective Rachel Torres had seen plenty of academic pressure cases in her career, but nothing prepared her for what she found at Elmwood Academy, one of the nation's most prestigious private schools. It began with a phone call from Dr. Helen Whitmore, the school's headmaster. Detective Torres, we have a delicate situation. One of our students, Andrew Leigh, has gone missing. He's 17, a senior, and he vanished 3 days ago. His parents are frantic. Rachel arrived at the sprawling campus within an hour. Elmwood Academy looked more like a university than a high school. Gothic buildings, manicured lawns, students in uniforms rushing between classes with designer backpacks. Dr. Whitmore met her in a luxurious office filled with awards and photographs of notable alumni, senators, CEOs, celebrities. Andrew is one of our top students, Whitmore explained. Perfect grades, captain of the debate team, president of 3 clubs. He was expected to get into Harvard early admission. His disappearance is completely out of character. Has he been under unusual stress? Rachel asked. Whitmore hesitated. All our students face pressure. Excellence is our standard, but Andrew always handled it well. I'd like to see his dorm room and speak with his friends. Andrew's room was immaculate, textbooks perfectly organized, bed made with military precision, walls covered with achievement certificates and college brochures. But something felt off. The room was too perfect, too sterile, like a display rather than a living space. Rachel's attention was drawn to a laptop on the desk. She opened it, finding it still logged in. The browser history showed repeated visits to college admissions forums, grade calculators, and, disturbingly, websites about academic performance-enhancing drugs. But what caught her eye was a folder labeled Evidence. Inside were screenshots of text messages, emails, and photographs. Rachel began reading, her stomach turning with each revelation. The messages were between Andrew and someone named Dr. M. They discussed academic performance, pressure, and something called the program. One message from 3 weeks ago read, Dr. M, I can't do this anymore. What you're making us do is wrong. I'm going to tell someone. The response, Andrew, you're confused and stressed. Remember what's at stake, your future, your family's investment. Let's meet tomorrow to discuss this rationally. Rachel continued searching the laptop and found a document titled Journal, Private. She opened it and began reading Andrew's entries from the past 6 months. March 15th. Started the advanced study sessions with Dr. Morrison today. He says the top students meet with him for specialized academic enhancement. It's supposed to be an honor. Mom and Dad are thrilled. April 3rd. The study sessions are intense. Dr. M gives us pills. He says they're vitamins and supplements to improve focus. Everyone takes them. Sarah, Marcus, Jennifer, me. We study for hours without getting tired. April 20th. I looked up the pills Dr. M gives us. They're not vitamins. They're prescription stimulants, Adderall, Ritalin, some I can't even identify. When I asked him about it, he said I was being paranoid and that high-performing students have used these aids for decades. He said if I stopped coming to sessions, he'd have concerns about my stability and might need to inform my parents and the admissions committee. May 8th. Something's wrong with Sarah. She's losing weight, can't sleep, keeps having panic attacks. She tried to quit the sessions, but Dr. M told her parents she was having a breakdown and needed psychiatric evaluation. Now she's on even more medication. I'm scared. May 30th. Marcus collapsed during exams. They said it was exhaustion, but I know it's the pills. We're all taking too much. Dr. M keeps increasing the doses, says we need to maintain our competitive edge. I want to stop, but he's made it clear what happens if we don't comply. June 15th. I found out what Dr. M is really doing. It's not just pills. He's been writing our college essays, fabricating research projects, and even taking some of our standardized tests for us. He has someone who looks like us with fake IDs. Jennifer discovered it and confronted him. Now she's gone. Her parents withdrew her from school suddenly. Dr. M says she had a nervous breakdown, but I don't believe him. The final entry was from 6 days ago. I have proof. Photographs, recordings, copies of the fake essays and research papers. I'm going to expose everything, Dr. M, the school administration, who must know what's happening. All of it. These drugs have destroyed Sarah. Marcus almost died. Jennifer is missing. I can't stay silent anymore. If something happens to me, the evidence is hidden where someone will find it. Dr. M doesn't know about this journal or my backup files. Tomorrow, I'm going to the police. Rachel immediately called her partner, Detective James Mitchell. James, I need background on Dr. Morrison at Elmwood Academy. And I need it fast. We have a missing student who is about to expose what looks like systematic drug abuse and academic fraud. Within hours, James had compiled a disturbing profile. Dr. Nathan Morrison, age 52, had been at Elmwood Academy for 8 years as the Director of Academic Excellence. He ran exclusive, advanced study programs for top students. Before Elmwood, he'd held similar positions at 2 other elite private schools. Rachel, here's the concerning part, James said over the phone. At both previous schools, there were rumors of inappropriate relationships with students and allegations of providing prescription drugs without authorization. Nothing was ever proven, and both times he left quietly with glowing recommendations. Classic pattern, Rachel muttered. Schools protecting their reputation over student safety. There's more. I pulled medical records with proper warrants for the students in Morrison's current advanced program. Over the past 2 years, 6 students have been hospitalized for exhaustion, malnutrition, panic attacks, or stimulant-related complications. All were in Morrison's program. Rachel returned to Dr. Whitmore's office, this time with James. The headmaster's welcoming demeanor evaporated when Rachel laid out what they'd found. Dr. Morrison is one of our most valued faculty members, Whitmore said defensively. His students consistently achieve the highest scores and acceptances to elite universities. Because he's drugging them and committing academic fraud, Rachel said bluntly. Did you know about the hospitalizations? The pills? The fake essays and test-taking? Whitmore's face paled. There were some concerns raised, but Dr. Morrison assured us he was following proper protocols. Our board felt his results spoke for themselves. Results. James's voice was sharp. 6 students hospitalized. 1 missing. How many have to be hurt before results don't matter? I want to speak with Dr. Morrison immediately, Rachel demanded. And I want the names and contact information for all students who've been in his program. Dr. Nathan Morrison was a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and an air of academic authority. He met Rachel and James in a conference room, his expression one of concerned cooperation. Elmwood Academy's emblem was prominently displayed on the wall behind Dr. Morrison, symbolizing the institution's prestige. Detectives, I'm devastated about Andrew's disappearance. He's a brilliant student. I've been praying for his safe return. You run an advanced study program for top students, Rachel said. Tell us about it. I provide additional academic support for our most gifted students. Extra tutoring, study skills, mentorship. It's completely voluntary and approved by the administration. Do you provide medications to these students? Morrison's expression didn't change. I occasionally recommend supplements, vitamins, omega-3s, things to support cognitive function. All legal and over-the-counter. Rachel placed a pill bottle on the table, one they'd found in Andrew's room. This is Adderall, prescription stimulant. We found it in Andrew's belongings, along with several other prescription medications. All trace back to prescriptions written in your name. I have ADHD and am prescribed these medications personally, Morrison said smoothly. If Andrew somehow obtained my medication, that's theft, not distribution. We have Andrew's journal, James said. He documented everything. The forced medication, the threats, the academic fraud. He was going to expose you. For the first time, Morrison's composure cracked slightly. Andrew was experiencing significant stress and paranoia. I tried to help him, but he refused treatment. His journal entries, if they exist, are the confused writings of someone having a breakdown. Where is Andrew? Rachel demanded. I have no idea. I hope he's found safe and receiving the psychiatric care he clearly needs. The interview went nowhere. Morrison had an answer for everything, carefully crafted to be legally defensible while admitting nothing. After he left, Rachel turned to James. He's too prepared. He knew this was coming. Because Andrew told him, James realized. Andrew said in his journal he was going to expose everything. Morrison knew and had time to cover his tracks. Rachel stood abruptly. Andrew said he hid the evidence. We need to find it before Morrison does. They returned to Andrew's dorm room with a forensic team. They searched every inch, behind books, under floorboards, inside electronics. Nothing. Behind the photograph was a USB drive. The drive contained everything. Photographs of Morrison distributing pills to students, recordings of him coaching students on how to fake symptoms to get prescription medications, copies of essays he'd written for students, evidence of test fraud, and financial records showing Morrison received substantial bonuses from parents for guaranteeing their children's admission to top universities. But most damning was a video file dated 5 days ago. Andrew had recorded a confrontation with Morrison. In the video, Andrew told Morrison he was going to the police. Morrison's response was chilling. Andrew, you're making a terrible mistake. Think about what you're throwing away. Harvard, your future, your parents' pride. Think about what will happen to your friends when this all comes out. Sarah is barely holding on. This exposure would destroy her. They deserve to know the truth, Andrew said in the video. You've been poisoning us, using us to make money, and destroying anyone who tries to stop you. Morrison's expression turned cold. You're a child playing at being a hero. You have no idea the forces you're dealing with. This school, these families, they've invested millions in maintaining excellence. You think they'll thank you for destroying that? You'll be the villain, Andrew, not me. I don't care. I'm going to the police tomorrow morning. No, Morrison said quietly. You're not. The video ended abruptly. Rachel felt ice in her veins. That's a threat. Morrison knew Andrew was going to expose him and had motive to stop him. They obtained warrants for Morrison's home, office, and phone records. The phone records showed Morrison had made several calls on the night of Andrew's disappearance to other faculty members, to board members, and to a number registered to a private security company. What would Morrison need with private security? James wondered. The security company specialized in reputation management and discreet problem-solving for wealthy clients. When pressed by police, the company's owner initially refused to cooperate, citing client confidentiality. But faced with obstruction charges, he revealed that Morrison had hired them to locate and retrieve sensitive materials from a student who was making false allegations. Did you locate Andrew Leigh? Rachel demanded. The owner, clearly nervous now, admitted that his employees had been watching Andrew's movements in the days before his disappearance. On the night Andrew vanished, they'd seen him leave campus with Morrison voluntarily. Where did they go? James pressed. Morrison has a cabin about 2 hours north of here, near Lake Prescott. That's the last place our surveillance team saw them. Rachel and James, along with a tactical team, drove to Lake Prescott immediately. Morrison's cabin was isolated, surrounded by dense forest, accessible only by a rough dirt road. The cabin appeared empty, but the door was unlocked. Inside, they found signs of recent occupation, fresh food in the refrigerator, a coffee mug still warm. In the basement, they made a discovery that turned Rachel's stomach. The room was set up like a prison cell, a mattress on the floor, a bucket, and restraints attached to the wall. There were signs someone had been held there recently. But no Andrew. "We need to search the woods," Rachel said. "If Morrison knew we were coming, he might have moved Andrew." The search began immediately. 9 units were brought in. The dogs picked up a scent leading deeper into the forest, toward a ravine. Rachel's radio crackled. "Detective Torres, we've found something." She ran to the location. At the bottom of the ravine, partially hidden by branches and leaves, was Andrew Leigh. He was unconscious but alive. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital. He was severely dehydrated, malnourished, and showed signs of being heavily sedated. But he was breathing. At the hospital, doctors worked to stabilize Andrew while Rachel waited for Morrison's arrest. But when officers arrived at the school to take him into custody, Morrison was gone. An APB was issued. Morrison's car was found abandoned at a bus station. Security footage showed him boarding a bus to the Canadian border. "He's running," James said. "He knows we have evidence. He said if I just destroyed the evidence and claimed I'd made everything up due to stress, he'd let me go and make sure I still got into a good college," Andrew said weakly from his hospital bed. "When I refused, he said he'd keep me there until I came to my senses, or until he figured out a permanent solution." "A permanent solution?" Rachel asked, though she already knew the answer. Andrew nodded. "He was going to kill me, make it look like I'd run away and died of exposure in the woods. He told me that no one would question it, just another stressed student who couldn't handle the pressure." With Andrew's testimony, Morrison's recorded threats, and the physical evidence from the cabin, the prosecution built an overwhelming case. But as the investigation deepened, it revealed that Morrison wasn't working alone. The scope of the conspiracy was far larger than anyone had imagined. Dr. Helen Whitmore, the headmaster, had known about Morrison's methods for years. Emails recovered from the school servers showed she'd been aware of student hospitalizations, parent complaints, and warning signs. Several board members had also known. Their children had been in Morrison's program and had benefited from his fraud. Some had even paid him directly, payments disguised as consulting fees, to guarantee their children's admissions to Ivy League schools. The investigation expanded to include the parents. Many claimed they hadn't known about the drugs or fraud, but financial records showed substantial payments to Morrison's consulting business. Some parents had been complicit, knowing exactly what they were paying for. Rachel interviewed Sarah, Marcus, and Jennifer, the other students mentioned in Andrew's journal. Sarah was frail and traumatized. She described 2 years of being given increasingly potent stimulants, working 20-hour days, and having her weight and sleep monitored by Morrison. When she tried to quit, Morrison had told her parents she was bipolar and needed psychiatric medication. She'd been committed to a mental health facility for 3 weeks. "He convinced everyone I was crazy," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "My own parents believed him over me. When I got out, I was too scared to try again. I just did what he said." Marcus described collapsing during finals and waking up in the hospital. Doctors had found dangerous levels of stimulants in his system. When he tried to tell his parents about Morrison's program, they'd accused him of trying to blame others for his own abuse of drugs. "They'd paid Morrison $30,000, Marcus explained. "They didn't want to believe they'd paid someone to hurt me. It was easier to believe I was lying." Jennifer's story was perhaps the most disturbing. When she discovered Morrison was submitting fake research papers under her name, research she'd never done, she'd confronted him. The next day, her parents received an anonymous email with photographs of Jennifer at parties where there was underage drinking. Morrison had told her parents that Jennifer was spiraling into addiction and needed immediate intervention. She was withdrawn from school and sent to a rehabilitation facility, despite never having had a substance abuse problem. "I spent 4 months in rehab for an addiction I didn't have," Jennifer said, her voice hollow. "By the time I got out, Morrison had spread the story that I'd had a breakdown. No one believed anything I said. I transferred to a public school and gave up on college entirely. He destroyed my life because I questioned him." The trial of Nathan Morrison began 8 months after Andrew's rescue. The courtroom was packed with students, parents, journalists, and education advocates. The prosecution presented a devastating case. Andrew's video and audio recordings. Evidence of systematic drug distribution to dozens of students over 8 years. Proof of academic fraud affecting over 50 students. Testimony from 7 students who'd been harmed by Morrison's program. Morrison's defense argued that he'd been providing legitimate academic coaching, that any medications were prescribed by outside doctors, and that Andrew's captivity had been a wellness retreat that Andrew had agreed to attend. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for just 6 hours. Guilty of kidnapping. Guilty of attempted murder. Guilty of distributing controlled substances to minors. Guilty of fraud. Guilty of child endangerment, multiple counts. Guilty of conspiracy. Nathan Morrison was sentenced to 45 years in prison. But the trial didn't end there. Dr. Helen Whitmore was charged with criminal conspiracy and child endangerment for knowingly allowing Morrison's abuse to continue. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison and permanently banned from working in education. 3 board members were charged with conspiracy and fraud. They received sentences ranging from probation to 5 years in prison. The most controversial aspect was the parents. 12 sets of parents were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud for knowingly paying Morrison to cheat the admissions process. Most received probation and community service, though 3 who'd been particularly involved received short prison sentences. Elmwood Academy itself faced a massive lawsuit from affected students and families. The school ultimately closed, unable to survive the scandal and financial liability. 37 students who'd been accepted to elite universities through Morrison's fraud had their admissions revoked. Many faced the humiliation of having to explain the situation in new applications. Some never returned to higher education. But there were also stories of resilience and reform. But the real poison wasn't the pills. It was the system that made us so desperate for success that we were willing to sacrifice our health, our integrity, and our humanity to achieve it. A system that valued achievement over well-being, results over ethics, admissions over actual learning. Dr. Morrison was a predator who exploited that system, but the system itself is broken. As long as we measure students' worth solely by their academic achievements and treat education as a competition rather than a journey, there will be more predators waiting to take advantage. We need to fundamentally rethink what we mean by success in education. We need to value learning over grades, growth over perfection, character over achievements. We need to protect students from those who would harm them in the name of excellence. I almost died because I believed the lie that my worth was measured by where I got into college. Other students weren't as lucky. This has to change. Rachel kept a copy of that op-ed in her office. It reminded her why this case had mattered so much, not just because they'd caught a criminal, but because they'd exposed a system that had failed to protect its most vulnerable members. The Morrison case led to significant reforms in education law. New regulations required independent oversight of private school enhancement programs, mandatory reporting of student hospitalizations related to academic stress, background checks that couldn't be circumvented by glowing recommendations, strict penalties for schools that covered up abuse or fraud, regular independent audits of elite schools' academic programs, better protections for student whistleblowers. Universities also reformed their admissions processes, implementing better fraud detection and reducing the weight given to achievements that could be easily fabricated or purchased. 5 years after the case, Rachel attended an event at which Andrew was speaking about his experience. He'd graduated from a state university with honors, studying education policy, and was working on reforms to protect students.